Alright, what's up Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 kids? Take 2 on this video. Looks like I will never be able to do a video in one take, because technology is just as never as simple as it should be. So, starting up right here, again, this is your first video for your first assignment for week 2. It's linear functions, which we've done a pretty good amount of this year, okay? We've talked about them a lot. Again, when you think linear function, you should think slope-intercept form, you should think slope, you should think point-slope form, all the things that are on my screen right here. Okay, that's what needs to be in your head. So there's a couple different ways I'll ask you, or an ACT may ask you to do linear equations. So you have 4 problems to start your assignment. 2 of them give you the slope, and they give you a point, like this first problem right here. Okay, so I don't need to worry about finding the slope because the problem itself gave it to me. All right. Or I'll give you a problem like number 2, which I just give you 2 points and I don't give you anything else. So from those 2 points, you're going to have to find the slope and then point slope form, then slope intercept form. Okay, so here's the steps right here. The first thing, again, you're going to find the slope. Again, when you think linear equation, linear function, you've got to find slope. Once you found slope, you're going to use point slope form, which is this equation right here. Again, out there, if you go to YouTube or if you look around on the internet, there may be another way that you see it done. The same thing I'm doing right now, which is fine. It still works, but I use point slope form because higher level math classes use it. So might as well get used to it. And then you got to finish in slope intercept form. We like things in slope intercept form because it clearly states our slope and our y-intercept. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So let's go with the first problem here. It says determine the equation of the line in slope-intercept form that has a slope of -3 and goes through the point -2, 5. So step 1 on this problem is already done because they come out and they give us the slope. They tell me that my slope is -3. Okay, and they also give me a point -2, 5, which we're going to label x1, y1. So step 1's done. That's nice. They gave us the slope. So we go straight to step 2. So step 2 is using point slope form. This equation right here. So y minus y1, that's why I labeled the point they gave us. y1 is the 5. It equals my slope, which we already said was a -3, parentheses x minus x1. In this case, x1 is a -2. So that looks weird. That says x minus a -2. We don't want to do that. We know that minus a negative turns into a positive. So we'll just go ahead and fix that. So step 2 is done. I found my slope. I put it in point slope form. But step 3 says I got to get there. I got to get to slope intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So the way you're going to do that is the same way every single time. You're going to distribute your slope. So I have y minus 5 equals -3x minus 6 when I distribute. Pay attention to the signs. Don't get them wrong. That's your first step, and then your last step to get it into slope-intercept form will always be to move this number over. Okay? In this case, that's a -5. So to move a -5 to the other side, I'm going to add it. So I get y equals -3x minus 1. And that problem's done. Okay, we have it in slope-intercept form. I can clearly see that my slope is -3 and my y-intercept is a -1. So we've done that one the way I want it done. Okay, so that's the first type. The second type of problem is like this number 2, which I don't quite give it a lot of room here to do. But it doesn't give you the slope, so we got to find it. So instead of just labeling one point, you got to label them both. The first one is x1, y1. The second one is x2, y2. And this problem says the exact same thing. Determine the equation of the line in slope-intercept form that goes through these points. So it doesn't give us the slope, so that's where I start. I gotta go find it. I labeled these 2 points because this is our slope equation up here, right? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So in my case, y2 is negative 6 minus a negative 4 over 5 minus 3. Again, this minus a negative on the top here actually turns into addition, so it's negative 6 plus 4, so a negative 2. And the bottom, we get 5 minus 3, which is 2. And in the end, my slope is a negative 1. Okay, make sure you reduce this right here. Don't just leave it. Always try to reduce that. So my slope is negative 1. So that's step 1. Step 2, point slope form. So y minus, in this case, y1. Remember, you're using this point right here. Is a negative 4. So it's y minus a negative 4 or y plus 4. Equals my slope, which we said was a negative 1, parentheses x minus x1, which x1 is that 3. Step 2 is done. Okay, so I found my slope, plugged all my points in, all my numbers in to point slope form, and then I have 2 steps again. I'm going to distribute my slope, so I get negative 1x, and then negative 1 times a negative 3 is a positive 3. And then the last step is to move this 4 over. Got to move him to the other side. He's a positive 4, so I'm going to subtract it. So in the end, my equation becomes y equals negative x minus 1. And that's my equation. My slope is negative 1, and so is my y-intercept. Okay. So that's how you find the equation of the line. That's how you will always do it. Okay. You got to find the slope. You got to put it in point slope form. And then you got to get it into slope intercept form. That's our chain of thought. That's the process right there. 3 steps, get it done. So that's a linear function. Then the next thing is a quick little reminder of parallel and perpendicular lines. Remember, for lines to be parallel, their slopes have to be equal, the same number. Okay, same number, same sign. If 2 lines are perpendicular, then their slopes are opposite reciprocals. So I give you the example of 3. Well, its perpendicular slope would be negative 1/3. It's opposite. One's positive, one's negative. And reciprocal means flip it upside down. So 3 would turn into 1/3. Also remember, geometrically, if we're talking parallel lines, those are 2 lines that never touch, right? So they just kind of go next to each other forever. Okay, if we're talking perpendicular lines, we're talking 2 lines that intersect and create 4 90-degree angles. Okay, if we're talking geometrically. But for right now, just we need to remember that parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocals. Now, to do these types of problems, you got to make sure that the lines are in slope-intercept form. Okay, we like that because if it's in slope-intercept form, then we know immediately that that number is my slope. Okay, so on this problem, I give you one of the equations is in slope-intercept form. This guy right here is in slope-intercept form. I know that my slope, pause, my computer messed up yet again.